Hi everyone, Sama here. In today's video, we will learn together how to use index match in Microsoft Excel to replace Vlookup. I will explain that in a very simple step-by-step tutorial. In a following video, I will explain more advanced uses of index match and why index match is preferred over Vlookup. So I'll keep today's video as simple as it can be. Index match is simply used to look things up. It's actually two separate functions in Excel, which are the index function and the match function, and we bring them both together in one formula to be able to pull off powerful lookups in a database. I'll be using here the same dataset I used when explaining the Vlookup in the previous video, and the reason is that I want you to see that when using index and match, we got the same values that the Vlookup brings. There is a free copy of that Excel sheet if you want to follow along with me. I will put a link in the description box below this video, or you can visit excelwithsama.com to download your copy of the Excel file. I would encourage you to download the file to practice these techniques so that you will be able to apply them on your own data files. The dataset we have here has some employee information, and I want here on the right side to type the employee code in cell I5, and I want Excel to bring me back the related annual salary. In the prior video, we used the Vlookup to bring the annual salary, and in this video, we'll be using the index match function. I'll be adding a link in the description box below for the Vlookup video, just in case you want to refer back to it. To be able to explain the index match function in a simple way, I will break it down into two parts, the index function and the match function. And I will explain each one separately, and then we can see how they are used together to replace the Vlookup. Let's start with the match function first and take a look how it works on its own. Using the match function, you can find out which row or column the data is included. The match function is very similar to the Vlookup, where it performs the same basic lookup. The difference is that the Vlookup is going to return a value from a cell, and the match will return a column or row number. In our simple data example here, we have a column for the employee codes, which is column C. Let's say I want to know what row is code FN04. I will type the code here in cell I5, and I will need to use the match function to tell me which row in column C has a match for this code. Let's type in the match function in cell I9. And to make it as easy as possible, I will use the insert function icon here. In the insert function prompt, if you don't have the match function listed below in this area, then type in match in the search for a function area, and I will click Go. Click on the match function and click OK. Now you see we have three arguments that we need to type in for the match function. You see here there is a definition for the match function and a definition of each of the arguments. As I click in each argument, the definition is shown to help you understand what is required for each of them. Our first argument is the lookup value, which is simply what is the match function looking for. In our example, we want to know which row is the code FN04. So the lookup value is FN04, and I will simply select a cell reference so that I can change the code freely without having to edit the function each time. I will select cell I5, as this is where I will type in my code to be matched. It is a good practice to get in the habit of using absolute reference, so I will hit F4 to anchor it, so that if we copy or move the formula cell, we don't need to revisit the formula to adjust it. The second argument is the lookup array, which is simply where should the match function find this code. This is where you want the match function to find the code you specify. So I will select the codes in column C as the array where I want the match function to find out which row the code is. And a very important note to remember here is that match function only matches in a single column or a single row. I will show you in a minute what I mean, but for now, just keep in mind that we only use one column or one row for the lookup array for the match function. And I will also use F4 to anchor it and make it an absolute reference. The third argument is the match type. I can choose 1, 0, or -1. I will type here 0 for an exact match. In most uses, we will choose an exact match. And in my example here, I need an exact match of the employee code. Now all arguments are entered, and before we click OK, you will see here the outcome of this function, and it tells us it is row number 6. Click OK, and you will see the match function bringing row number 6. The match function will start counting the rows from the first row in the column you specified in argument number 2, the lookup array. If I click in the cell and check the function, I see here it's starting from C5, and we count 6 rows till we reach the lookup value, which is FN04. If I change the code in cell I5 to PR07 and hit enter, the match function will bring back the number 16, which is telling us that this code is in row number 16. This is simply how the match function works. Type a value and the match function will match it in an array and tell you which row it is in the specified array. I'll make a change in the array to cover more than one column to see how the match function will react. I will change the range C5C20 to C5D20 or C5E20, any number of columns as long as they are more than one. I will hit enter, and now the match function is not working. The reason, as I mentioned earlier, is that the match function can only work with a single column or a single cell. We have a work around this, but it is a little bit advanced use of index match. Let me know in the comments if you want me to make a video to explain this. I will undo. Before explaining the index function, I just want to explain that we can use match to return a column number as well, not just a row number. I will go to cell I15 and I will do the same steps to insert a match function. The lookup value will be cell I14, where I will add the column header, and I will need to find the column number for it. The lookup array will be here in row number 4, where I have all the column headers. The range here will be from B4 to F4. In the formula earlier, where we returned the employee code, the match function was searching in a column, so it was returning a row number. In this example here, now we need to find the column header in this row number 4. So the match function will be returning a column number within this range we are specifying. I will type 0 for an exact match and click OK. I will type in cell I14 department, and the match formula will return number 4, which is the department column number in the specified range. So we can use match function to either return a row number or a column number. And note here that we only specified a single row or a single column. When we combine the match function with the index function, we can return a value from a cell. We will see how to do that in a minute. But first, let's explain the index function on its own. I will type back the employee code as FN04 in cell I5. We have seen how the match function works on its own. Now let's take a look at how the index function works. The index function simply gives you a value in the cell when you specify the rows and columns for it. It will bring you the value in the cell, which is the intersection of the row and column numbers you specified in the range. Let me show you how this is done. I will use the index function to tell me what is in this specific cell, F10. You can start entering the function here in cell I10 by typing = in the cell and typing index, but I will keep it simple in this beginner video and go up here in the function helper and click on insert function. I have a prompt where I can insert the index function if it is in this area. If not, then I will search for the index. All the recently used functions will be here in this area. I'll pick index and click OK. We have another prompt and I will choose the first one here, the one that says array, row number, column number, and I will click OK. Using the function helper and these prompts as a beginner will help you a lot to fill in the arguments for your functions. Here we have 3 arguments needed for the index function. We see here a definition for what the index function is, as well as definitions for the arguments when we click on these. The 3 arguments for the index function are the array, the row number, and the column number. The array is simply all the possible cells that could contain the answer I want the index function to return. In our example here, I can select the area from F5 to F20, or I can also select the area from B5 to F20. This is different from the match function where we can only select one column or one row for the lookup array. But here, in the index function, we can select either a single column or multiple columns in the array. I will show you how choosing a single or multiple columns will affect how we write the formula in a minute. But for now, just keep in mind that we can select the cells in a single column or several columns. I will select column F for now, and as advised always use F4 to anchor it and make it an absolute reference. The second argument is asking me to specify a row number. The row number here will depend on the array I selected in the first argument. So in our example, cell F10 is in the row number 6 in the table array I specified in argument number 1, which was F5 to F20. 6 is how many rows the index function needs to go down to get me the answer. And from the match function we just did, we found out that the row number is number 6. I should be writing the match function here, so it brings up the row number. But just to make this easy and clear at the beginning, I will type in 6 here just for now. We will change that later and I will show you how in a minute, but keep it hard-coded as 6 for now. The third argument is asking me to specify a column number. In this example here, I selected a single column, so I can skip entering a column number and leave it blank as the array is only one column. Excel will realize it is just one column, that's why I have the option to ignore it or write 1. I will ignore and click OK. Here the index function is bringing the employee annual salary for code FN04. But what if I had selected the array as multiple columns, not a single column? I will delete and redo the same steps, except I will change now the array to reflect multiple columns. This time, the column number is not an option for me anymore. I have to specify a column number or the index function will not work. In our example, the annual salary is in column 5 of the array I specified. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I will type in 5. This is how many columns the index function needs to move across the array to get the answer. And you can see the value that will be returned appears here. I will click OK. We see the index function brings back the value $41,000. What we have done here was we gave the index function an array and we specified a row number and a column number in this array. Then the index function will search for the cell in the intersection of the row number 6 and column number 5 in this array, which is cell F10, and will bring us back the value in this cell. That is what the index function does. If I delete this and redo all the steps again, and inserting the multiple column array, but this time ignore the column number and click OK, the index function does not work. So to sum up, if we specify one column in the array, we can ignore the column number in the function. If we specify multiple columns in the array, we need to add a column number for the index function to work. Now I will redo the index function with only one column in the array, just to simplify at this stage. So I will choose the array to be one column and enter the row number and click OK. Now we know how the index function works on its own and how the match function works on its own. Let's combine both functions so that we can pull off some powerful lookups that can replace the Vlookup function. I will look up the same employee code FN04, so you can see that using both index and match together will bring up the same value as the Vlookup we used in the Vlookup video. Let me put here in cell J6 the Vlookup value for FN04 so we can compare. I'm assuming you already have watched my Vlookup video, so you know what I'm doing here. If you have not watched that video, I will add a link in the description box below. If I want to know what is the annual salary for the employee code FN04, then I need to search the table for code FN04 and bring back the corresponding annual salary. First, we want to find the position of the FN04 in this table, and we will use the match function to do this as we have just learned together. The match function is bringing us row number 6. Then we need to know the annual salary for row number 6, and this is where we can use the index function as we have learned. Let me copy the index function we did in cell I10 into cell I6 and see how we will combine the match function with it. I will click in the cell I10 and click F2 on keyboard and copy the whole function and click enter. I will go to cell I6 in the formula bar and paste it. I will keep it simple and choose the array here to be the annual salary values here in column F only. And there is no third argument as it is only one column. I will click enter. The index function brings back the annual salary of $41,000. But as mentioned earlier, I hard-coded the row number 6 in the index function, and that we need to change now. This was just to simplify it for you so you can understand where the match function will fit in the index function. In order to use the match function within the index formula, we will copy the match function and paste it to replace the number 6 in the index formula. To do that, click in the cell where we entered our match function, cell I9, and highlight the formula from the formula bar till the equal sign. Don't include the equal sign. Copy it and click enter. Now let's go to the index formula and click on the cell I6 and click F2, and in the formula bar I will highlight the 6 and paste the match formula to replace it. What we are doing here is instead of having a hard-coded or a fixed row number, which is 6 in this case, we are making the row number dynamic. So whatever row number the match function will bring, this will be used in the index function to bring back the value in the cell. I will hit enter and you will see it still gives the same result. And it's matching what the Vlookup is bringing in cell J6. Now watch the fun part when I replace the employee code in cell I5 to PR07 and hit enter. The employee salary is automatically updated to give me the annual salary of the code I just typed. Let's click into our index match formula to see how it works. The index function is using the array F5 to F20, which is all the possible salary values, and bringing the value in the row which the match function will specify. The match function on the other side is using the input cell I5 to search for an exact match in the array C5 to C20, which is all the possible employee codes in this case, and returning the row number which has an exact match for the index function to use. I know it's searching for an exact match from this 0 here. So simply the match function is used to bring the row or column number that will be used in the index function to bring us the cell value. I know a question might be popping up in your head now. If both the Vlookup and the index match are bringing the same value, why is it better to use the index match function? I will demonstrate that for you now. Let's assume we will enter the employee code, but we need the name instead of the annual salary, which is on the left side of our lookup value. I will take a copy of these cells here to show you. And because we have anchored the index function, it will keep the cell reference unchanged. While the Vlookup function, which I didn't anchor, the cell reference changed and I need to adjust it now. Now you know why I always advise to use absolute cell reference. In the Vlookup function, let's try to adjust it to look up the employee code and bring the name. Here we are trying to bring a value which is on the left side of the lookup column. So I will change the range to include only column B and C. And the column number I will type in 1, as this is the name column, and then I will hit enter. As you see, it does not work. And this is one of the limitations of the Vlookup that we are trying to overcome by using the index match. Now let's try bringing the employee name using the index match function. I will click in the cell I19, and because I need to bring back the employee name, not the annual salary, I will just drag the array in column F to be in column B. To do that, hover your cursor to the edge of the highlighted area till it changes to a 4 arrow, and drag the array and hit enter. It is as simple as that. I will delete cell H18 and I18 so as not to confuse you. The lookup value in both is cell I5. This is because there are two different ranges that we are referencing. The array with the index function is one range, and the lookup array with the match function is a separate range. Now we have the employee name, and if we check our data set, we will find it to be Maria, which is correct. So instead of modifying your spreadsheet to move columns around to be able to do a Vlookup, you can just use the index and match functions instead. This is one of the limitations of the Vlookup that index and match can fix. There is another limitation, but I will explain that in the next video. Hopefully you are starting to understand how both the index and match functions are working together to pull off some lookups for us. I recommend using index and match function over the lookup function. In my next video, I will be explaining another limitation of the Vlookup and how the index and match functions are preferred over the Vlookup. We will also go through some advanced uses of the index and match functions. If you want to watch that video, please subscribe to my channel and hit the bell button to be notified as soon as I upload the video. Don't forget to download the file from the link below or from excelwithsama.com to be able to practice using the index and match functions. See you in the next video.